All right. Welcome, Facebook followers and social media followers. And we are here today at 1 o'clock, our Q&A, Karen Paul, and there's Michelle and Adrian Jones, who is actually sitting at a train station in London, England. So yay, we've got, as I told you before, we're a global company. He works for KW. And so as I mentioned many times, we can do business globally. But we also have Carrie Ann, who is our right arm, left arm, and our great administrator. And she's going to tell us all about the market stats this week. So there you go. You have the floor, Carrie Ann.
Good afternoon, Facebook followers and social media and everyone out there. In the last 7 days on the Halton Burlington board, we have had 228 new listings, 16 back on the market, 100 price decreases, 219 sold listings, 95 canceled listings, and our average list price is $1,386,462, and our average sale price is $1,249,907. Average days on market is 16, and the max days on market is about 127.
Okay. All right, so just a little slight discussion. Any comments about that, Michelle? Have you got any? Michelle, by the way, is a buyer's agent for our team. So any comments about that, Michelle?
Yeah, I think that it's a very, very interesting market. Things have definitely shifted. We're trying to help our sellers, with expectations of what their homes, and also with buyers as well. Everyone is seeing this big shift, and I feel like, it's a really interesting time, and, it's really about supporting your clients and, as best as you can, and then, seeing what happens and kind of just putting yourself out there and going for what you want. So we're trying to help as much people as we can find what they're looking for right now.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay, and my comment on the market is that it is a fabulous market to get into as far as a buyer and a seller. Just price it right, and you'll get the offers on your table, and maybe even competing offers, because we have had competing offers. There's anywhere from 10 to 20 offers on a property that's listed below the $1 million range. So there you go. So you may be able to take advantage of that, sellers. All right. Adrian Jones is in London, England. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I thought it was to reel off a whole load of figures would probably not make a lot of sense to all of your Facebook followers, because the most interesting figure that I heard from you, because values are hard to relate. It's hard to relate within the UK in different towns and cities. I was very interested to know that the average time on market is 15 days, which does suggest that you've got a very strong market. That's a really good statistic, and one that we had in the UK until probably about 4 or 5 months ago, until we decided to commit suicide economically with our political appointments. I thought I'd get that out there before anybody else mentioned it. And although in a funny way, that fast tracked what was going to happen anyway, because would it be worth me tracing our economic background over the last,
Yes,
like a 2-minute tracing of what's happened?
Yes, please.
So
tell us.
I
know you've gone through several prime ministers, but apart from all that.
Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah. So I will try and make this as succinct as I can. So we left Europe through Brexit, and I'm not going to go into any opinions on these, but we left Europe, and one of the legacies of leaving Europe is we lost a lot of workforce. We lost a lot of European labour who went back home, effectively. We then had COVID. COVID put a lot of money in people's pockets, strangely, because nobody was spending money on commuting to work. I don't know how much you know, but we also had a furlough scheme in place where people were paid by the government 80% of what they earned.
Yeah.
So weirdly, people were actually better off not working during COVID than they were before. At the same time, because of COVID, there was problems with supply of goods, whether it be timbers for building a house or buying some electronic equipment. And that put inflationary pressure because people had money in their pockets and goods were hard to get hold of. That gave us inflationary pressure. You then chuck the war in Ukraine on top of that, and what we've been bubbling around 2% inflation for the last, since the banking crash. And suddenly we very quickly went to 4 or 5%. And then because of Ukraine, we've now hit 11.1%, which is the biggest it's been for 41 years. So that's pretty serious stuff. We then committed a political own goal with an appointment. I can only relate it to your own household. You know, it's a bit like saying to your own family, we're going to spend a load of money on credit cards in order to look better and get better jobs and make more money as a family. And of course, the whole economic world just threw the idea out. We've already corrected that undoing, but the background of 11% inflation, high interest rates, that's with us. And we officially today went into recession. So we're going to have a couple of tough years. But to complete the economic picture from a property point of view, typically in the UK, about 1.1, 1.2 million houses sell every year. And in the very worst year in the last 30 or 40, about 800,000 properties have still sold.
Yeah.
So although that's quite a reduction, and we'll probably have one of those years next year, it doesn't all fall off a cliff. And it's about being a better agent and knowing your market, just being better at what you do. So the Keller Williams agents I was with today at MC Day, whilst we're going to have a tough time and we're going to have to batten down the hatches and pull in the purse strings, those business owning, entrepreneurial fiduciary agents, medium and long term, it will be good for us. Because KW is very new in this country.
Well, I think it's a time, Adrian, it's a time where not only real estate agents, but people have to work harder now to get where they're going. And I think it definitely stands true of a real estate agent because, in the past, I would say year or year and a half, real estate agents have been given the sale right in their lap, and they've hadn't had to work for it. And so now it's a time that they're going to have to work for it. So tell me about your mortgages. I want to just review that, because the last time I was in England, which was about 15 years ago, your amortization rate was pretty high as far as, and what is your amortization now? Your maximum amount of amortization.
Your terminology is slightly different to mine. You can borrow. There are a few 95% mortgages around.
Yeah.
But in the main, it's usually up to 90%.
Yeah.
And the 100% mortgage is out of the equation. And currently, the most competitive mortgages are around 6%, very broadly sweeping statement. I mean, there's
the same as ours.
The thing that's strangely embedded into the UK economy is that housing is it's probably one of the most important parts of our economy, because the way we live, the way we're taxed, it's just become part of the way we live. And no government of whatever colour and persuasion is ever going to allow the housing market to fail and crash for any period of time, because it will be the most economically one of the worst things they could do. So that's why it remains quite robust. even in tough times. And we are going into tougher times, but it will remain robust.
So when you borrow a mortgage, how many years can you amortize your mortgage? What's the maximum amount of years that you can amortize that mortgage if you borrow if you have a mortgage on your house?
The typical mortgage was always 25 years, and that rarely changed since the year dot. But now you can get a mortgage. Obviously, you can sometimes fix your rate for a certain period of time, but you can now get, in later life, you can get a 10-year mortgage. Some people I know are taking out 40-year mortgages at younger age. There are people now retired who are able to take a mortgage based on their retirement income. So the other thing, again, about our economy, which may be similar to your own, is whilst the market and lending has become much more difficult and much more precise, and the rates have changed, we have a very, very competitive mortgage market. And, you know, there will always be major banks trying to outdo each other for the best rates available at the time. So that is another factor which will, you know, that we are a million miles from having any sort of monopoly on lending on mortgages. So it's very, very competitive market.
Well, what has become very predominant in our market are private lenders. Holy mackerel. Those private lenders are stepping out and competing with the banks, and they are going at 5-6%. Ours are running about 5.5%. And so the private lenders are coming out, and they don't want 8 anymore. They don't want 10. They'll take 5. They'll take 6. So they're trying to compete, but it means that there's in excess of funds that private people have that they don't know what to do with. They can't put it in the stock market because the stock market is so volatile. So they want to put it out there so that they can make a fixed rate of some sort. Do you not agree, Adrian?
It's not my area of expertise, but I think the private funding is quite rare on the purchase of an individual home. You get quite a lot of private equity finance for development. So quite a few high net worth individuals will fund an apartment development, or rather than go to the major banks. What you tend to find is that a lot of the well-known high street banking names will often have a little subsidiary, which is a specialism or a bit of a niche funder, maybe a bit of a risky funder, where they may offer either rates for those who might be not perfect to lend to, or they might offer extremely competitive rates, but it represents a fairly small part of that bank's market. And if it goes a little bit wrong, they've not exposed themselves heavily. But I would probably need to speak to one of my brokers, but I can't remember private finance of an individual home purchase happening since I've been in business.
Yeah, I'm assuming that, and there's high risk mortgages that are going out through private lenders anyway. It's not through, if they can't get it through a bank, then they'll go to a private lender. The mortgage brokers here, they have all those private lenders in their pocket. But so let's get on to selling a house and buying a house in London, England. So, okay, so what is more predominant? Is it condos? Is it detached homes? Talk to us about the process of, I want to come and buy a home in London, England, and I want to buy I know that there are row housing, and I know that there's condos, but tell me how I can buy a house in London, England.
The best way to buy a house would be to put you in touch with Natalia or Ugo, who are brilliant buying agents at London Prime. But there is probably the most... Does licorice all sorts mean anything to you in America?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Yes,
I know better,
you have probably got the most licorice all sorts collection of properties you could ever find in London, because like most major cities, it has its unbelievably high value areas around Knightsbridge and Kensington. It has its new wealth in the likes of Canary Wharf and areas of the city which have now become more residential. And then it's got suburbs which, you know, you would not want to spend, you wouldn't want to be in there at 6:30 or 6:20 on a Thursday evening. So there is everything. There aren't a lot of detached houses right in the centre of London. Where I work is an hour's train drive in Hampshire. So I'm in a very archetypal English village, large village, Cricket Green, Jane Austen, Edwardian Victorian houses. We have some more modern stock. We don't have a lot of, the apartments we have are on 2 or 3 story buildings. In London, the apartment blocks were never more than 8 stories until about 20 years ago, where due to construction techniques, suddenly we've got 20, 30, 50 story blocks, which we never had before. And the London on the river of 40 years ago when I was a child, which was broadly unused and derelict, apart from the places like the House of Parliament, now is the place to live because you're on the river and in an amazing apartment. So, well, in answer to your question, what could I buy in London? Almost, what would you like to buy? Because there's almost anything and everything available.
Can I buy something for 200,000?
You could probably buy a parking space or a garage, or you could probably buy a converted studio flat in a not very nice, old Victorian Edwardian studio flat in some not particularly great part of London. Yeah. But you could get your foot on the ladder. Yeah.
So the bottom line, the average price is probably what, 2 million, around 2 million, I'm guessing.
Average price is probably under £1 million, because for every really high value, 50 million pound 5-story house in Eaton Square, there will be a lot of very small, fairly old, fairly rundown property stock in London. Again, probably I would say typical with a lot of cities. There are the shiny crown jewels of the city, and then there's the rest where just ordinary people live. And so the average, I actually don't know the average value of a London property, but it's almost an irrelevant figure, because the mean average has such a scan of properties from high to low. It's almost a meaningless figure.
Yes. Yeah. So why would I want to come and live in London? Give me an incentive to come and live in London, England. What is the draw to London? If I wanted to come to live in London and I was exploring, talk to me about the reasons why I would want to come and live in London, England.
I think culturally, it is still one of the most amazing, vibrant, exciting cities in the world. I'm lucky enough to have been to a lot of America, but I've been to a fair bit of America. I've been to likes of Hong Kong, South Africa. I've traveled reasonably well. And I love cities and I love remote parts of this world. But I still think London is the most amazing cultural mix of people, of music, of art. There is still a great liberal feeling of what you could do if you came to London and wanted to do something incredibly dynamic, whether you are a wannabe fashion designer, you want to be the new Damien Hirst, or do you know Banksy?
Yeah.
I mean, he's based in Bristol, but I just think the UK, but London is the epicenter of just creativity. And it's, of course, no longer the prerequisite of the white Anglo-Saxon male, but it is, an unbelievably homogenized community, and it does have its race issues. It does have its homophobia issues. But I think compared to a lot of the issues within the world, we are far more tolerant than most. And people get on. There's always going to be issues and troubles, but I think people get on. And I just think there is you don't have to be super rich to enjoy London. You can do an awful lot of London for nothing or very little money. And I just think it's an exciting place to be. I'm going to get this quote wrong, but I think it was Ben Jonson said, if you're tired of London, you're tired of life. And it was a quote from hundreds of years ago, but I think it's still very true.
Amazing. So at KW, Adrian, are you a real estate sales representative, a professional sales representative, or are you in the executive area? What are you at KW?
I am an agent connected to the Prime Market Centre in London. So I joined KW about 2 years ago. I was actually linked to another market centre, but I've moved, partly because this market centre quite simply is better, but it also gives me a London link, which is quite important for my vendors, because we have quite a lot of buyers where I am who come out of London. For all the things I've just said about London, there comes a point where for education, peace of mind, cleaner air, bigger garden for your kids, people move out of London, and they move not just from the suburbs, but they move right out. We're only an hour by train. I will, at the end of this, get on my train and I'll be home in an hour and 10 minutes. So, you know, I'm not in Scotland or Cornwall.
Yeah, it's a fast train,
yeah. And so that's why my affiliation with the London Market Centre really works for me. But yeah, I'm just an agent. I have a VA who works for me. I have a real-time admin who works for me. I have another person who does social media and marketing for me. I'm on that cusp of just wanting, I'm going very admin heavy within my business. So I'm going to be recruiting more and more admin before I worry about agents joining me. And if we hadn't had the blip in the market we're going to have, I probably would have recruited at least maybe 1.5 admins in 2023. I'm obviously just going to have to view what happens in the market to see whether that growth is there. But if it doesn't happen next year, then it'll happen the year after. So
one of the most successful agents in Montreal taught me something when I was an entrepreneur, when I was a rookie in the business, let's put it that way, and many years ago. And she said, always get an admin and go admin heavy, and you do the work. You do the floor, the running around and the meeting with clients, and have that administrator just do that work for you, and you will make. And she is now she is the top agent in Westmount in Montreal, which is the area in Montreal to live. You have all our prime ministers live there and what have you. So I think you're doing the right thing. Absolutely, that's fantastic.
You said all your prime ministers. I thought that was a phrase that I used, because we seem to be stacking them up quite heavily at the moment.
Well, wait a minute. So how many prime ministers do you have today? No, I'm kidding.
How many do we have today? We still have Rishi Sunak. Yeah. Well, having said that, I've been at the MC day all day, so.
And he's really a very interesting man. He's very, I like him actually. So my comment.
Well, without wearing a political hat and your political persuasion, what he has brought is credibility and stability. He was our Chancellor of the Exchequer during COVID, and he was a very credible figure during that. Boris Johnson is a very dynamic, very enigmatic person, but not a details man. And Rishi Sunak was the one dealing with all of that. So he should have been Prime Minister when Boris left. He didn't. He now is. So regardless of, say, your political persuasion, he has already brought credibility and stability. And the time will tell as to whether he then brings us out of this.
Absolutely.
We'll have to see. But I think he's getting some global credibility. And I'm interested to know what you think, and I'm interested to hear what you just said.
Well, it's interesting to see what a Canadian, like I love reading, and I love reading about, well, we have to stay on top of it anyway, about the economics around the world. And so I love educating myself about it. Well, England almost became a joke because of how many prime ministers they were going in and out, right? But then when you did, when he came into the House of Commons, everybody said, "Yay, that's the right guy. That's the right guy." And that's the Canadian version. That's the Canadian opinion. So, other than that, yes, let's not get political here, right? So, Adrian, is there anything you want to add about real estate in London, England, or even in the UK? What do you foresee in the future about, everybody's talking here about market crashing and mortgage rate, interest rates being put up. Our finance minister has said that he's going to raise the interest rate, so thus the mortgage rate goes up. So what's happening there in the UK? Is it same sort of vibe?
It is. We've, as I say, added fuel to the fire with, the political appointments, which has caused greater confusion. Where, compared to London, is quite a sensitive, volatile market. So, for example, if the city has a downturn, the high net worth individuals in London buying high value London property, you'll see quite a change in that marketplace overnight, because it's extremely volatile, and vice versa. If we have a good year in the city and all the bonuses comes out in January, then property prices boom short term and drop. Where I am personally is arguably a much more boring place economically and demographically, which means that if London's doing this, where I am trickles along, but we're not immune from it. And we've just got regular, ordinary people who are worried about their gas bills. There isn't a great worry about jobs at the moment, because our unemployment rate is extremely low. We're about 3.7%. They think that will probably double in the next year or so, but that is still quite a low unemployment rate for a recession. And part of the reason for inflation is because there's been no pressure in the job market. People have been able to come out. If you speak to the retailers in my high street, they can't find anybody to take a job. And that needed to change. So I think we're going to have the biggest fear as agents is lack of activity. People sitting on their hands and waiting for things to change. But very few people, in my opinion, just move house because they can. They move house because their family's growing, their family is shrinking, they're having babies, the kids are going to uni. There's death, debt, and divorce, and those core factors don't disappear. And if you are in the wrong house, in the wrong part of the country, you will have to move, and people will do that. So it's going to be a bit lower in numbers. And I think what will happen is that the agents, both as businesses and individuals, who haven't really had to learn how to sell anything for the last 2 years because it's been like order taking, they're going to have to just be sharper in what they do. And they're going to have to stage houses, their marketing, their photos, their write-ups, their social media, everything they do to promote a property is going to have to be, 9 and 10 out of 10. Because for the last 2 years, you can do a 5 out of 10 job and you'd still sell the house in the same time for the same money.
I agree.
That's the fundamental change with the agent. And that's the opportunity for me personally, and the opportunity for KW agents.
How long have you been in the business, Adrian?
I did a law degree and then I got into the property business, but I've always been in development, land and new homes. And then in lockdown, I knew the company I was with were probably going to lay me off because we thought the world had come to an end. And I flicked the switch on LinkedIn that you can do to attract recruiters. And I got a call from Darren from one of the market centres who said, "Have you heard about Keller Williams?" And I said, vaguely, but like most people in the UK, truth was no. And certainly knew nothing of it. structure, its ethics, its ethos, its culture, and met them several times in the space of 4 or 5 days. Took a month to decide whether that was the right thing for me to do coming out of lockdown, and it's what I'll do for the rest of my working life. Hopefully only another 5 years.
Great. Great. So just one more question. Gazumping.
Did you say gazumping? Okay. Doesn't actually happen as much as people think. What we were doing a lot during the last couple of years was guiding something. So we had a guide price. So if you thought something might be worth and maybe achieve 750,000, for example, you'd guide it at 700 or 725, fill the open house, create buyer competition, and achieve the 750 or maybe a little bit more. And that to me isn't gazumping, that's finding the best buyer at the best price.
Yeah, yeah.
Invariably, when somebody is gazumped, it's because using the same figures, the property was on the market at 750. They agreed a purchase at 720, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, somebody else turns up who says, I actually am willing to pay 750. It is quite rare, even in a very strong market, for a house to be sold or marketed at 750, to be sold at 750 and solicitors instructed, and then somebody comes in at 760, 770. It's quite rare.
Okay.
It happens in the commercial market, it happens in the land market, but it doesn't happen very much in the day-to-day domestic market. No,
yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Our conveyancing system is archaic and rubbish.
Well, the last time I heard about it was because my mother's family is all from England, and I have a lot of relatives in England, and we'll have to turn them on to you because I'm sure they're buying and selling wherever. But so the last
Can
time
I ask you a question? What is your average time, not just as your business, but within your industry locally? What's your average time between a sale being agreed to a completed chain, where there's no other sales that need to be agreed, and exchanging or completing on that sale? What typically is your average time?
Anywhere from 30 to 60 days.
Well, the stat we had a couple of months ago, and I haven't seen it revisited, was that for the same statistic, the average in the UK was 154 days.
Wow.
That's the average.
So
and that's that's without people finding new buyers.
So Adrian, though, but which leads me to the question of, so do you get a large deposit on the offer to hold for that 150 days? Because we get 10% of the price, almost 10% of the price of the purchase price. So in other words, if it's $1 million, so we get 100,000 sitting in our bank, in our trust account, in the brokerage.
No, not a penny. In new homes, so you could buy, if you came to London tomorrow and bought £1 million 2-bedroom apartment near the river and bought it from a developer, you might have to pay a reservation fee of probably £5,000 nowadays, probably, from a developer. If you bought my apartment, if I did have £1 million apartment overlooking the river, and you bought it from me, the only commitment and pound of flesh I get from you is to know that you've instructed your solicitor, and to know that you've maybe instructed a surveyor or a bank valuation, and that you've put some money into the process. You do not lodge any form of monetary commitment to that purchase.
That's, it's funny because that's what in Ontario, it's meant, our Ontario Real Estate Board has made that mandatory, right, to give a deposit. But in Quebec, you don't have to give a deposit. Exactly what you do, exactly what England does. You don't have to give it. So I bought a house in Quebec. I didn't have to give a deposit and nothing, absolutely nothing. And it, you close.
To be honest, our issue isn't somebody saying, I'm going to buy your house, and then on a whim a few weeks later saying, I'm not going to buy it anymore.
Yeah.
The issue is the conveyancing process, We've had a lot of conveyancers who've left the industry as a result of the amount of work they had last year, and when we came out of COVID, they're not that well paid. They were hugely stressed. A lot of them have left the industry. And so there is a shortage of good property lawyers. We have a very archaic system, and everything we do to update that system, we seem to do two other things to slow it down again. And it's just, about 20 years ago, we tried to change the system whereby if you were coming to sell your property, you had to create a buyer pack. You had searches done, you had the survey done, you were ready to sell.
Yeah.
It lasted about a week or about 4 weeks. And the only thing that remained from it was the energy performance certificate to know how energy efficient the house was.
Right.
I would love to go back to that idea that one of my vendors to come on the market, had a survey done, had their searches done, had a pack ready to go out from their solicitor. So that the moment the sale was agreed, out goes that pack. The buyers know exactly what they're buying.
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime.
Well, that's perfect because it would save a lot of time and issues as far as for the conveyancer, obviously, right? So, all right. So, thank you very much for being on our panel, Adrian. We're finished. We're done. You can go home.
I have absolutely loved it. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for being in an echoey train station, but blame the MC.
Okay. It's more fun when it's like that, it's creates more of an excitement when you're in a train station. The other thing is that
can I return the invite as well?
Absolutely. You want me to come on?
I would love something like that. I'll find the right forum, whether it's me or I think it would be better if it was a more London-based agent, perhaps, because it would be a bit more relevant to Jane Austen country. But I think there would be one of the things we need to do as KW UK is start thinking worldwide. And
it's funny because I was in Portugal a few weeks ago, and KW in Portugal, they asked me to do a full presentation in front of the whole office, and it was amazing. It was just amazing. And now we're talking because obviously, the euro is gone down in value, so there's more investors looking at Europe. And so it's going to work well. It'll work well. It will soon be communicating well and exchanging buyers, sellers, etc. And I think it's in the future for sure. So there you go.
Definitely something we need to do. It'll take KW UK to the next level to be on a more of a world stage.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for being on. And Carrie Ann and Michelle.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah. I hope I didn't ask if they had any questions of you, but Michelle, do you have any questions of Adrian?
Not right now, but just thank you so much for being here with us today.
And Carrie Ann?
No, not at the moment, but if you have any questions or want Karen to, I'm the person to contact, so just contact me.
Will do. Stay in touch.
Yes.
Take care, Adrian.
Thank you.
Have a good trip home. And thank you, Facebook followers and social media followers. And always remember that we're a worldwide company and we're one of the largest at 200,000 agents across in the world, Carrie Ann. So we're doing well. Thank you very much.